Chapter 10 Topic 22 Part 9 Life Sketches of Ummuhat al-Momineen. She says, I was 17 when I was married to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She came to live with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was camping at the first stage from Khyber. In the morning, he said to the Sahaba, let everybody bring whatever he has got to eat. They brought their dates, cheese, butter, etc. A long leather sheet was spread and all sat around it to share the food among themselves. This was the walima for the marriage. She died in Ramadan, 50 A.H., when she was about 60. 11. Horat Maymuna, radiyallahu anha. She was the daughter of Harit bin Hazan. Her original name was Bara, but she was later renamed Maymuna by the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was first married to Abu Ram bin Abdul Uzza. According to some reports, she was married twice before she became Momineen. She had been widowed lately when the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, married her at Saraf, a place lying on his journey to Mecca for Umrah in Zul-Qa'dah 7. He had intended to start living with her when in Mecca after performing Umrah, but, as Quraysh did not allow him to enter Mecca, he called her over to him in the same place on his return journey. Many years later she died, and was buried exactly at the same place in 51 A.H., when she was 81. This is a strange coincidence that at a certain place during one journey she is married, at the same place. On the return journey she starts living with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and at the very place on another journey, she dies and is buried. Hurat Aisha, radiyallahu anha, says, Maymuna was the most pious, and the most mindful of her kith and kin, among the Prophet's wives. Hurat Yazid bin Asim, radiyallahu anhu, says, she was seen either engaged in salat or domestic work. When she was doing neither, she was busy in miswak. She was the last woman to be married by the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Certain muhaddithin have, however, mentioned one or two other marriages contracted by the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Appendix. The sons of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had 3 sons and 4 daughters. All the children were born from Hurat Hadija, radiyallahu anha, except the son Ibrahim. Qasim was his first son, born to him before Nubuwwat. He died when he was 2. Abdullah, the second son, was born after Nubuwwat. He was, hence, called Tayyab and Tar. He also died in his childhood. At the time of his death, the Quraysh rejoiced and said, Muhammad is without a son, and will therefore be without posterity. His name will also die out with his death. It was on this occasion that Surah Al-Kawthar was revealed by Allah. It said, Lo, we have given thee abundance. So pray unto thy Lord, and sacrifice. Lo, it is thy detractor, not thou, who, 18:1-3, is without posterity. Even after more than 1300 years, there are millions are proud to be connected to him in love and devotion. Ibrahim, the third son, and last child was born in Medina in 8 A.H., the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam's Wanla 11 slave Mariah begot this for him. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, performed the Aqiqah ceremony on the 7th day of his birth. 2 lambs were slaughtered, and the child's head was shaved by Hurat Abu Hind, Bayazi, radiyallahu anhu, silver equal in weight to his hair was spent on charity, and the hair was buried. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, I am naming my child after the name of my forefather, Ibrahim, alayhis salam. This son also died on the 10th of Rabi al-Awwal, 10 H, when he was only 18 months old. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then remarked, Allah has appointed a heavenly nurse to tend to Ibrahim in the gardens of paradise. The daughters of the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. 1 Hurat Zainab, Radiyallahu Anha. She was the eldest daughter of the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and was born in the 5th year of his first marriage, when he was 30. She embraced Islam and was married to her cousin Abul As bin Rabi. The story of her emigration to Medina and her getting wounded by the Quraysh has already been given in the early part of this chapter. She suffered long from that wound, and at last died of it at the beginning of 8a. Her husband also embraced Islam, later joined her in Medina. She had a son Ali, radiyallahu anhu, and a daughter Amana. Ali died during the lifetime of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This same Ali, radiyallahu anhu, was the person who sat with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the camel's back at the time of his triumphal entry into Mecca. We read frequently in hadith about a little girl riding on the back of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he prostrated in salat. This was Amana, Zainab's, radiyallahu anha, daughter. She lived long after the death of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ali, radiyallahu anhu, married her after the death of Fatima, radiyallahu anha, his first wife. It is said that Fatima, radiyallahu anha, at the time of her death had expressed a desire for this union. She had no issue with Ali, radiyallahu anhu. After Hurat Ali's, radiyallahu anhu, death, she was again married to Hurat Mughira bin Nawfal, radiyallahu anhu, from whom she probably got one son named Yahya. She died in 50 A.H. 2 Hurat Ruqayya, radiyallahu anha. She was born 3 years after the birth of Hurat Zainab, radiyallahu anha, when the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was 33. She was married to Uqba, son of Abu Lahab, the Prophet's, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, uncle, but had not yet started living with him when Surah Al-Lahab was revealed. Abu Lahab called his sons Uqba and Utah, to whom Kulsum, another daughter of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was married, and said to them, "Unless you both divorce the daughters of Muhammad, I am not going to see your faces." They divorced their wives. Later, upon the fall of Mecca, Uqba embraced Islam. Hurat Ruqayya, radiyallahu anha, after this divorce was married to Hurat Usman, radiyallahu anhu. The couple emigrated to Abyssinia twice, as we have already seen in chapter 1. Since the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had announced to the Sahaba that he was expecting to receive Allah's command for emigration to Medina at any time, they started shifting to Medina even before the Prophet's, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hijrat. Hurat Usman, radiyallahu anhu, and Hurat Ruqayya, radiyallahu anha, had also emigrated to Medina before the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, arrived in the town. At the time of Badr, Ruqayya was ill. She died subsequently of this illness. Usman, radiyallahu anhu, was, therefore, asked by the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to stay in Medina and look after her. The news about the victory in Badr was received in Medina when people were returning from Ruqayya's funeral. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was, therefore, not present at her burial. A son was born to Hurat Ruqayya, radiyallahu anha, in Abyssinia. He was named Abdullah and survived his mother, but died in 4a.h. when he was 6 years old. 3 Hurat Kulsum, radiyallahu anha. She is the third daughter of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She was married to Utayba, son of Abu Lahab, but had not yet started living with him when Utayba divorced her after the revelation of Surah Al-Lahab, as has already been mentioned. After divorcing her, Utayba came to the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and used the most insolent words toward him. The Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, cursed him by praying, 0, Allah, depute one of thy dogs to punish him. Abu Talib, who had also not embraced Islam, was alarmed at the curse and said to Utayba, you have no way out now. Once Utayba was accompanying Abu Lahab in a caravan, going to Syria. Abu Lahab, despite his disbelief, said to the people, I am afraid of Muhammad's curse. Everybody should be very careful of my son. They happened to camp at a place that was inhabited by lions. The people piled up all their luggage and Utayba was made to sleep on top of the pile, while the rest of the people slept around the pile. A lion came at night, it smelt all the people sleeping around the pile. Then it jumped over the people and reached Utayba. He gave out a shriek, but meanwhile, the lion had severed his head from his body. We must avoid offending the people dear to Allah. The Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, has reported Allah as saying, I give a challenge of war to one who offends my friends. After the death of Hurat Ruqayya, radiyallahu anha, Hurat Kulsum, radiyallahu anha, was also married to Hurat Usman, radiyallahu anhu, in Rabi al-Awwal, 3a. The Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, said, I have given Kulsum in marriage to Usman by Allah's command. She died issueless in Shaban, 9a. After her death, the Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is reported to have remarked, even if I had 100 daughters, I would have given all of them in marriage to Usman, one after the other, if each one had died.